Nosferatu, everyone's favorite vampire, is back. This 2024 film is directed by Robert Eggers. I don't know if he's a household name yet, but if you are not familiar, he directed The Witch and The Lighthouse and The Northman. Here's what you get from a Robert Eggers movie. You get impeccable craft, rich historical storytelling, and something that's sort of unhinged in a unexpected way. And this movie has all of that. So here are a few quick selling points for the movie, in my estimation. Fantastic environments. This covers things including the locations, the city location that some of the characters inhabit for most of the movie. It feels period appropriate. I think everything fits with the time period, like to my eyes. But there are also some absolutely fantastic looking places like Orlok's Castle, the general, mountain scenery, the little village outside. And it also covers, like even just extras walking around in their clothing. The costuming, I think, seems pretty believable. Again, going back to covering the era, everything feels at home. Lily Rose Depp has a number of different costumes that all feel kind of visually subdued but still have good variety. And Orlok's wardrobe is great. I think it's perfect for his aesthetic. There are some beautiful shots. There is this one sequence that takes place at a crossroads that I think is maybe my favorite scene of the year. Just aesthetically and also the way it uses sound, I think is really great. And I think additionally, I won't say any details, but I think the ending shot is fantastic choice as well. Again, won't say any details at this point, no spoilers yet. But there are a number of qualities of the film, some details and execution, some of its themes and ideas, I suppose, that will surprise you, I think. This is probably, if I had to guess, not quite the kind of movie a lot of audience members expected going in. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. I'm glad that there are movies that are, defying expectations in what to me is a good way. And I think the most admirable quality to me is the theatrical nature of the movie. So this is set, was it 1838? So some of these scenes, with the people looking in their 1830s attire, talking in their 1830s way, right? It could sound a little foreign to us, and that's fine. This isolated quality. It's not just this one segment of the movie that feels of that era, that feels heightened, unrealistic, quote unquote. This movie is full of these choices that feel a little bit heightened, that feel a little bit poetic. So not only is it something that the audience might not be used to, that might be a little bit of a different experience, but it's also consistent. It's part of the framework of the movie to me. You've got Willem Dafoe giving a kind of theatrical monologue with a theatrical setup. One other character, I don't think I'll name him who it is, but gives a pretty dang theatrical performance. And also a great monologue alongside that. Orlok's got an extremely vampiric voice. Not to me, at least, to the point of being cheesy or anything like that, but it's very recognizable. It's got that heavy Dracula quality to it, for lack of a better term. I don't know if it's a Romanian accent or what it is, but you recognize it. It is very much that, and it's a lot of that, but it's fine because it's well supported. It makes a lot of sense. It's coherent. And while I wouldn't characterize like these next couple things as like theatrical per se, they are poetic. They are less traditionally based on, reality, the audience's expectations of reality, which is good. I think it's good for films to remind people that, they don't have to be based in traditional reality. They can exist in like a pocket version of this universe, and they can do their own thing with it. And this movie's thing is kind of stretching things, making things more poetic, a little more grandiose. So like often the spoken words are a little more poetic. I think that goes along with kind of the Pride and Prejudice core. There's like a sense of drama that we associate with people talking like this, because most of the time we encounter that is in literature, maybe in stage plays as well. Many of the horror scenes even have like this dreamy sort of lightness to them, which makes also, I think, a lot of sense in context. But it gives them such a unique feeling, and perhaps not what you would expect from the horror scenes in a horror movie. They still have a dark and menacing quality to them, especially like the first time. I won't say what that is. But this balance between them having what I would call like a poetic quality, like a certain lightness that you might feel, plus a menacing darkness. Like that combination of something positive, something negative is something that fits perfectly with the movie's ideas. And then even like the Foley, we're talking sound, even that's like a little bit larger than life in some spots. And again, it just goes to serve like these things that are like bigger than you expect and maybe a little more expansive, maybe a little more theatrical. It's just a great, well-rounded experience with like a specific vision of what it's going for. And it supports that idea in a lot of different areas. And then of course there's the whole character ensemble, all the actors, maybe not Taylor Johnson to me so much. But generally the cast does quite well. They sell what they're given. Obviously you can do you can have all the ideas you want for theatricality and for just going a little bit above and beyond. But if the people performing can't sell it, then that's going to be a problem. They sell it. It's awesome. I think Lily Rose Depp specifically has a couple of strong physical scenes in her performance. If you weren't sold on the movie before, hopefully this can convince you a little bit. Give it a shot. Would love for this to make a bunch of money so that Eggers can keep making his movies, because I love that a director like him is making movies. If you liked Nosferatu, then maybe check out movies like Vampire or Possession. Those were a couple that came to mind as like rough parallels for a couple different aspects. A few spoiler notes to finish up. While I do love the fact that this movie is going for the theatricality, I don't always think that it nails the right like dynamics, the right pitch for them. And this is maybe like a common thread for me with Eggers' work. I respect his movies a whole lot. I have never strongly connected with one. So there's always something a little bit lacking for me in his work, despite how polished and really wonderful to look at it is. So I think the initial contract scene we get with the boss, I think that's a great example of the idea being there, right? Like something a little bit bigger, something ominous, something very overt to give us an idea, like foreshadowing Nosferatu's power, what he's capable of. That makes sense in theory. I just think the level that scene goes to is a little bit higher than what you can support with the rest of what the movie's doing. I think something similar in the kind of like the main possession scene with Thomas and Ellen, when that kind of turns into the sex scene. There's just like the kind of like a big dynamic shifts in there. And to me that feels a little bit at odds with like the general ideas of like a more dreamy, more poetic, still imposing, but kind of like slow moving menace than something like strangely dynamic to me. In that moment, I don't think that feels quite right. Those aren't the only two scenes, but to me, those are the two that I remembered the most walking out of the theater as being just like, I just don't think they work quite right for what the goal was. And I know like it kind of sounds like I might be talking out both sides of my mouth with the theatricality, but again, I think you've still got like a range of tone that makes sense with what you've set up. I just don't think all the moments in the movies are supported by what it sets up. I do love the shot of Nosferatu, like extending his hand out over the city. I love how that is not only like him like reaching out, kind of transporting himself to her like abode, but also, if I remember right, I don't think I was imagining this, I think you can hear like some sounds of cries in the city because the plague is ongoing at this point, and it just feels like a great association there, like him just stretching out, and not only is he going to find his target, but he's also causing all this pain and suffering as he travels, much like he traveled across the sea on the boat, causing plague along the way there. He's still continuing it, spreading it through the city. I think that's a great way to communicate it visually. I think the opening feels a little bit weird to me, like the literal opening scene. It feels a little bit like a last time on sort of recap, like for a TV show or something. It just feels like it comes on a little bit too fast, because we're getting the information, makes sense, right? We're getting the background, the time the spirit came to her, but I don't know, it just feels weirdly sudden to me. I didn't think it felt like it set a great foundation for the rest of the movie. And then I think the ending shot is great specifically because I think it's a fantastic combination of the kind of like the light and dark that the film was exploring, especially in Act 3, because you've got like the beauty of like the sunlight coming in, right? We don't get a lot of sunny scenes in the movie, plus the flowers, just the composition in kind of a painterly way, plus the grotesque quality of the vampire's body itself, plus the blood stains and everything like that. I think it's a great combination that visually communicates the idea of confronting the darkness and whatnot. Was also not expecting the movie to be quite so sexual, I guess. Like in the beginning, you have like the notes of like the moans in some of her like dream sequences or whatever, and then like Bill Skarsgård is positioned kind of suggestively on Thomas when he's feeding. So I was kind of thinking like, okay, so there's like a little psychosexual undertone layer type of deal. But then it was definitely not an undertone by the end, which I guess I'm fine with. I think it would be more fun as kind of like a creepy like note to leave the audience with, rather than making it kind of the focal point. But I mean, it's not like there's anything wrong with it, I suppose. Definitely not something I would have expected. Definitely one of those things I think I would characterize as a sort of unhinged quality that is always somewhere in Eggers' stuff that you would not necessarily expect. And I would assume most people walking to the audience watching Nosferatu were not expecting to see vampire sex. So it's interesting. You can never, like, one thing I will never be able to fault Eggers for, he does interesting things every time. And I appreciate that so much. We need more of that for sure. But yeah, that's about it. That's my thoughts. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you enjoyed Nosferatu. And I'll see you in the next video.